Live from the Transitional Radio Uplink in Cuenca, Ecuador, you're listening to All Natural Being with guest host Henry G. Noel. What's the G stand for? Giddy up on IPMNation.com. Here's Henry.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this, the 357th episode of Brian Broady's All Natural Being, the #1 rated show on IPMNation.com and brought to you by Transitional Radio. Now, we are live this evening on IPMNation.com, Transitional Radio's Facebook and YouTube pages with Fly on the Wall video on Facebook, YouTube. Now, with rebroadcast with iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and a whole host of others. Now, we are broadcasting live this evening from our international uplink studio in Cuenca, Ecuador. And we want to thank our good friends at Wirecast for making it possible for us to be broadcasting, and not only live, but globally. Now, we also thank you, our trusted listeners, for without you, there just would not be any reason for me to be here this evening. So we want to thank those listening on radio and those listening to our rebroadcast. And we also want to thank our Fly on the Wall video listeners. We do find it far more enjoyable having you participating in the thread and sharing your ideas and giving us your peace of mind. So for all our listeners from all over the globe, from places like North America and South America and Central America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Western Asia, Central Asia, East Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, Africa, and Oceania. Thank you all for trusting us and for investing your valuable time. We are quite aware of the many other places you could be spending your time, so thank you for choosing to spend them with us. It is wonderful having you here. Now, my name is Henry Noel, guest hosting for our good friend Brian Brody while he entertains the medical world with his cerebral humor. And I'm thrilled to be filling in for a virtual hitchhiker. So from 2 degrees south of the equator, where the girth of the earth exceeds the time for a diet, I think, we want you to understand that regardless of where you are on this fabulous globe, your life is still your jungle. And you, in spite of what you think and believe, you get to carve out your own path one step at a time. Rip out the underbrush, suppressing your passion to live the life the way you want. Why count down for the sport of others? You were dealt this hand, so why not play it with all the passion you can find and play it the way you always dreamt you'd play it, if only you were given a chance? Well, by God, this is your chance. No one is more qualified to control your life than you. So why cave into the pundits who presume they are in control of you? Why allow the opinions of others to derail you from your all natural being? Don't get caught up in all the moronic insanity others use to demoralize you. Use your primal scream to stand tall and proud, front and center, and do not place yourself in second place. You're better than that. And we're here to ensure you have your day in the sun as your friendly force, placing your heart's highest priority top of the list, reinstating the true wisdom and wallop of your inner whisper, pushing you to terminate the turmoil in your life, limit the liability of your luggage, and streamline your sensibility so you can face this crazy world head on and out brutal. Now, all this so you can bring on your own bold once and for all. So get prepared for audio acupuncture, where we treat all the points of your chronic philosophical pain, providing auricular therapy to reduce your anxiety, medical qigong for your mind, body, and spirit, and Reiki for your rationality, all to provide a natural healing approach to the medical mayhem we call life. So welcome to Healing in the Nth Degree. Are you ready? And are you comfortable? Kick off your shoes, kick back, and let's get started. Now, we trust everyone's had an enjoyable Wednesday thus far, and we thank you for joining us on this Lee Words Wednesday evening with my special guest, Sales Copies Academy's own Lee Raleigh. For all of our radio listeners who feel like participating in this show, email me your questions at henry@henrygnoel.com, and I will be thrilled to answer them. If you're listening to our rebroadcast and want to voice your opinions, email me and I will reply. I am trying to create an avenue for everyone to be actively involved in this show so you can all discover your all natural being. So let's get this evening underway, shall we? Let's get into the thread. Let's say hi to our fly on the wall listeners and see who all happen to join us this evening. Okay. So here we go. Let's see. We've got, well, of course, there's my brother. I love it. Thank you, Wayne, for being here. Appreciate that. And Alice, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. John, as always, love to have you. It's great. Rita, thank you for joining in and thanks for helping out. Candace, hello there. How are you? It's great to see you. And Lee's tuned in, so I know he's all ready to go. And I think that that's terrific. We are going to continue down the list here and see how all things are going. I'm hoping everybody has had a great Wednesday so far. It's hump day, and it happens to be Halloween. So it's kind of fun to know that you all are there, and hopefully staying safe and sane. It is one of these great evenings to be out there. Although I really don't have a clue what the temperatures are up there. I'm sitting around here 2 degrees below the equator, where the temperature doesn't really change a whole lot. So we're pretty steady every day. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't tune down some of this noise in the background of my head. So I'm going to try to dial it down just a skosh here. There we go. I just want to make sure I can still hear him when he comes on. So anyway, as we covered, Lee is going to be talking about quid pro quo and about its relationships in dealing with negotiations or dealing with persuasion. So it should be a very interesting topic, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. So if we can, I will get my brother to bring Lee up, and we will say good evening to Lee, and I'll keep him informed as to what your comments are on the thread as we go along, and hopefully we'll do a halfway decent job of doing that. Are you there, Lee?
Hey, Henry, how's it going?
Hey, doing great. How are you, sir?
Hey, I am fantastic. Well, happy Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Day, whatever the heck it is you're celebrating tonight. I'm just glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you, Lee. It always is. I just enjoy
Absolutely.
I enjoy the evening. You come and bring so much enlightenment and so much wisdom to us, and I just love it. And great slants on the way that you do things. So, what has been going on with the inimitable Lee Raleigh? Any big things going on? Big announcements?
Well, we had one little small thing.
Oh, okay.
Happened to me today. After 3 long months of slogging and technical things breaking that I don't understand how to fix, and lots of creative vernacular and all that, we're finally up and running. So it's a pretty big day.
Congratulations. Sales Copy Academy is official. I love it. You're out there.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's great news. That is wonderful to hear, Lee. Everything and anything else going on in the illustrious life of Lee Raleigh?
Well, right now, just doing a lot of client work. We've got quite a few clients who are looking to get into the Black Friday, Cyber Monday cash grab, as it is. And then on into the rest of the holidays. So this is a seriously busy time of year for a copywriter, at least this one.
Oh, I can imagine, which is good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you're busy, because that's obviously it's what you want to be. But bottom line, this is coming close to the holidays. I can imagine this has got to be a pretty intense time. And of course, everybody waiting till just before the holidays to finally decide they really want to do something with copy. And of course, you're going to pull them out of the trenches. I know you.
I've pulled more than a few chestnuts out of the fire. So
that's wonderful.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. It's about 10 after the hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and take a gander at this. And the first question I've got, and please, everybody, you got questions, jump in here, and I'll make sure that Lee gets the question in case he's not able to see the thread. So From my side of it, Lee, I mean, bartering has been around since the dawn of humanity, and I can't think of a better example of quid pro quo or reciprocity. Actually, would you be so kind as to explain to explain that in this crazy world that we live in, just how reciprocity or quid pro quo actually works?
Okay, good. Actually, can you repeat the question? I lost the signal there for just a second, and I missed about half of it, so I don't want to just answer a different question.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. I'd be happy to. Yeah. Bartering has been around since the dawn of humanity, and I think that I can't think of a better example of quid pro quo or reciprocity. Now, would you be so kind as to explain in this crazy world that we live in just how reciprocity and quid pro quo actually works, what its intentions are? Yeah, that's okay. Yep, we have
the show. It is from its fundamental level, reciprocity ensures the survival of a group. Simply because it's able to do things together that it couldn't do on its own. For example, there was a study done back in the late 1980s, showing that this is not unique to humans. That actually that vampire bats. Interesting that I bring this up tonight, right? But vampire bats would actually share their food with other bats when need be to keep the group strong. I don't know what a group of bats is called. Is it I don't know, a cloister? I could look it up, but I won't. So this is something that, again, is not unique to humans. It is something that's hardwired into us because we've learned that reciprocity allows us to survive by being able to work together. Now, of course, the flip side of that is that a sense of reciprocity can be used for manipulation.
Yeah.
I hate to bring up the concept of predators, but somebody in a unmarked white van hands a kid a bag of candy, and then the kid feels obligated to get in the van.
Yep.
I mean, reciprocity create.
Gotcha. Yeah, there seems to be you're freezing up a little bit, and Wayne's trying to work on it to see what's going on his end. So that's okay. I mean, we'll try to figure it out and go through this. So as everybody, if you sit listening on the radio, if all of a sudden you hear silence when he's talking, it's because the signal's actually freezing up. So I'm not going to jump in because it doesn't seem to stay frozen very long. So it'll be a little bit of silence, but that's because I want to give Lee a chance to be able to get back in and get the connection back up. Thank you, by the way, Lee, for the answer. And do you have examples, of good and bad reciprocity techniques used for persuasion? I mean, you mentioned one about the candy being handed out from the van.
Right. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a couple here. Here's one that there's a gentleman by the name of Robert Cialdini. He is calls himself a persuasion specialist. And he has what he calls the 6 weapons of influence. I'm not exactly sure about the whole concept of calling them weapons, because that right there to me has a negative connotation. To some other people it might not. Right. But he related a story about I'm sure that you've seen in hotels, especially in drier areas and areas that are prone to the stink, that say, hey, please conserve water, reuse your towels, and help save the environment, right?
Right.
So we've all seen those, and so Cialdini actually started playing around with it. And so they tried a placard that says, if you reuse your towels or your bed linens, not only are you conserving the environment, but we will donate a portion of the savings to a charitable cause. Okay. And he found that there was absolutely zero effect. the sign that just said, save the environment, reuse your towels, and the sign that said, we'll donate, a portion of the savings, had the exact same effect.
Wow.
But then he changed the wording to say, we already donated to a charitable cause in the name of our guests. Won't you join us in conserving water and blah, 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 blah. And that sign, just that wording of saying, we already did this, now won't you do this, gave them a 21% increase in the number of people who were willing to reuse their towels and linens.
Wow.
I mean, just imagine that, just being able to say, we already did X, so won't you do Y? And to create change in 21% of the people that makes them go, okay, yeah, I'll do this.
Wow.
Okay, so that's reciprocity in a positive.
Definitely. Most definitely.
Sense. A lot of the negatives, I'll tell you, a few years ago, my wife and I were in Montego Bay, Jamaica, and we were at a resort there. And so a few of the staff members warned me, like, okay, don't go off the resort by yourself. That's not a good idea. But on the last day, I'm like, okay, I need to tip everybody. I need to go to the ATM. Hey, there's one across the street. How bad could it be? So I start to leave the property, and the guard's going like, "Are you sure about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be back." So I get over there, and I get about halfway to the ATM, and a local stops me, and where are you going? And, like, I didn't want to tell him, but he already figured out that I'm going to the ATM, right? And so I just figured it was a passing conversation, and he stands outside. So I get my money, and I come out, and he starts to put this bracelet on my wrist and wants $20 for it, which is about like 4 million Jamaican dollars, right? And I'm like, well, I don't want this.
What's that? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's odd.
Sorry, Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff coming through. I'm not sure what it is. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Of course, everybody I'm checking in to make sure it's not my end anyway. So, so anyway, the guy puts the bracelet on my wrist. So he wants $20 for it, and I'm like, well, like, I don't want this. He's like, well, I stood here and made sure nobody robbed you while you were at the ATM. And I'm like, wait a minute, no. You stood here and made sure you didn't rob me. And now you sell me a $20 bracelet, so I'm getting robbed anyway. So needless to say, I handed over the money and took the stupid bracelet, and I think it's sitting in a junk drawer somewhere. So that sort of thing could be used as manipulation into getting people to do things that's, not only do they not want to do, but it's not in their best interest as well.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Thank you. How interesting. I think that, it's really funny because how you're able to lead into it, because my next question was to tell you, says, when do these techniques actually overstep their bounds? Well, there's an example of one right there that oversteps the bounds right there. Okay. Actually, I have no idea what's going on. I don't hear anything, so I don't know. And
all right. Well, I'm going to.
Sounds like computer messages. Okay, well, I'm
going to shut down everything but Rendezvous.
Really?
Okay, I have absolutely everything shut down but Rendezvous right now.
Interesting. Okay, well, no, it's not. There's that. I have no idea. Yeah, because I'm not sure how. I can't do anything except I've got this one. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I appreciate the help there, bro. Okay. So, one of the things that I'm experiencing is in negotiations when I was involved in manufacturing and dealing with negotiations between labor unions or between just negotiating contracts and whatever the case may be that we've had to negotiate vendors and trying to get components in. And there was always a give and take. I mean, yeah, there's bottom lines on contracts, and this is the commitment that you make. But you're behind, and what do we got to do to get it back up to snuff? How do we get you to catch up, and what do we have to do? What do you need from us? And so I'm familiar with a lot of that in business and stuff.
Right.
But there are also a lot of in everyday life. I mean, everything, in relationships that we deal with, there's a back and forth of a giving and a taking, whether it's in relationships with someone else close to you, or if it's just family members, or if it's inside or outside of business. What are the best approaches in order to do that, where you're doing it correctly, where you're not being seen as being pressuring someone into trying to do something?
Well, one of the big points is the equitability, or at least the perceived equitability of what you're asking for. In other words, what I've done for you as opposed to what I expect you to do for me. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be equal per se. Charities have done this for years, where they'll send you an envelope and it's got a sheet of mailing labels, and then a letter asking you to donate, and the connection being like, we gave you something free. Look at these nice, peel off labels. Now won't you give us a donation? So it doesn't necessarily have to be, one for one, but it needs to be beneficial to both parties and not perceived as outrageous, by the person that you're asking it from. So, I mean, it's a matter of, finding out or discerning what it is that you can ask for that makes sense and doesn't make the other person feel like they're being used. Gotcha.
And that has got to be a real interesting balancing act that you have to do in order to give the perception that you're giving more than that you're getting back, yet in actuality it's at least even, or the other way around. And yet, I guess I always used to joke about it and saying, yeah, it's like being able to pick somebody's pocket and they thank you for doing it. But that's not exactly the best example for me to use. But it's but how do you balance it? What are the things that you would do in order to find out exactly what is the bottom line? I mean, everybody there's a point at which they are going to agree. And obviously it's trying to get to that point as quickly as possible, and yet not be offensive about doing that. How do you go about trying to decide, or try to find out what it is that somebody actually really does want, in order for you to go ahead and proceed and do what you need to do?
Mm-hmm. Really, it's a lot of practice and trial error, and from what I've found, if there was a magic formula to determine exactly where that threshold was, I probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you right now. I would be somewhere, in Central America, swimming in a pool of money. But it really is. It's about that equitability, and if you're coming from a marketing standpoint, it's easy to do that from a market research perspective in terms of being able to. But if you're dealing with somebody one-on-one, I always say that the most valuable currency in the world is understanding and connection. So to me, that's always been my form of reciprocity, in terms of, I'm not going to, as is common in our industry, just hand you some cheap, fluffy ebook and then expect you to buy a $5,000 course because, look, here, I gave you this free ebook, because that to me seems highly inequitable. But being able to show you that I genuinely understand you and where you're coming from, and that I respect and acknowledge your viewpoint, even if I don't agree with it, that goes a long way into creating that reciprocity. So, I that to me, what the person is willing to do for you raises according to how much you've shown that you understand and respect where they're coming from.
Wow. Very good. Thank you. I actually, for everybody out there, I hope that a lot of this really starts to make sense because it really is so critical. You know, if and I'm going to go back to remember my days in negotiating, and I always questioned it whether or not, especially in dealing with labor or dealing with contracts, you know, is reciprocity or quid pro quo, is it the best system for negotiating, and is it the fairest system that we have for negotiating?
As compared to what? You know, I guess that would be my question. You know, is it flawless? Absolutely not. Is it abused? Oh, absolutely. So I guess my counter question would be, you know, what would be a better system?
Well put. I mean, no, thank you. I mean, you're right, and that's because I don't. That's it's not my business any longer, so I don't really have to deal with it very much at all. And so I didn't really know. It just to me was a very. I just remember having been in it and questioning.
Sure,
wow,
absolutely.
We sat here for 5 days trying to negotiate a contract, and and we're right where we left off, right from day one. I mean, nothing. We haven't advanced anywhere. Yes, you've given up, I've given up, you've given up, I've given up, and now we're right back to the original contract and what we're trying to do, and we're not happy with that. So, I always question whether. I guess it depends on the people that are doing it. I guess that's really where it comes into is how good are the people that are doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not a perfect system, and there are always going to be people who are going to easily give up their position, and there are going to be people who are not going to give up their position, even if it's to their own detriment. So I mean, we're on the extremes of that scale. I mean, in a perfect world, we meet in the middle, but that's just not what happens because humans, we do have a knee-jerk propensity for reciprocity. We're also pretty greedy creatures when it comes down to it.
Well, yeah, and exactly. And how do we separate that? I mean, how do we keep that greed under control when, well, one, it could be your livelihood that you're trying to negotiate. It could also be someone else's livelihood that you're trying to negotiate either for or against. And how do you maintain that balance? How do you maintain that vision too?
For me, it's more about looking at the long-term picture. I tend to think less in terms of transactions and more in terms of relationships. In terms of what's going to create the best result, not necessarily right this moment, but a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and that's what I'm looking at. There are times where I'm willing to give up more ground today to have that beneficial, positive relationship ongoing. Because then, for me as a business professional, that's one less client that I have to go out and look for. That's one less client I have to onboard, and I already know how they think and how they work. They already know how I think and how I work. So it's beneficial for both of us to continue that relationship, even if it means giving up something that you really thought was important to you.
Oh, wow. So there's really, when you're dealing in negotiations or dealing with quid pro quo, you really are, you become one of your challenges. You become one of your negotiations, is you have to balance off. Is it more valuable to keep the relationship than it is to try to prove a point?
Right, exactly.
So you take that who you define yourself as, and that becomes part of your negotiating tools. Wow.
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting. I love that. So it really is it's not you against anybody. There's no ego involved. There's no real push to try to prove a point. It's the value of the relationship may require you to back off a little bit, and the willingness to do that makes you successful.
In the long term, yes. I mean, obviously that's not everyone's MO, and I completely understand that. This is just how I approach business and how I approach relationships in real life. I was going back to connection being one of those valuable currencies in the world. I mean, this is, even if you're in an argument with, a spouse or a child or a parent, having that understanding and being able to show, that one, I'm listening, two, I'm understanding, and three, that I'm acknowledging your point of view, makes it easier to find that middle ground, because you are creating that career. So you're giving the respect and encouraging it in return. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Totally.
Which has been one of the easiest ways to diffuse a situation that I've ever found, because I'm not great at boxing. My hip throws are a little off. I can't run very fast. So, we communicate. That's what we do. That's what us bald, skinny guys do, because otherwise they'll break us in half.
Well, I doubt that, but I've got you, and I do understand that. And you're right. I think that's what it really is. There's nothing fancy about it. It's being honest. It's being true to yourself. It's being, placing yourself in a position where you don't create anger or where you don't create an animosity that destroys a relationship or a friendship down the road. You're right, and I think it's really appropriate for a lot of the stuff that we've been covering over this past 2 weeks. Dealing with this whole process of how important it is to be more giving than you are taking, and how that balances out in the long term. I don't look at a lot of news at all, and I happened to click in today just to see what was going on up there, and I came across a comment, or I guess this was a statement, I guess, that the president had made about his attorneys had assured him that he could executive order national birthright out of the Constitution, that he could take away your natural, and I started to giggle because I'm sorry, I know immigration is such a major issue right now in the United States, but I don't see how that type of a comment is really good in the long term in trying to build relationships with the people in your country. I am not sure if I quite catch that one. I didn't think it was a real good reciprocity. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. When it comes to things like that, I usually say that that's a topic that's meant for greater minds than mine, which is just my semi-graceful way of like paddling around it, because I just don't. Yeah, no, I completely understand. And clearly, whatever you have to say, good or bad, that creating that sort of connection and fair reciprocity is really one of the more pressing points of the current administration. I mean, whether that's a good or bad thing is depends on who you are and what your viewpoint is. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're all going to be sitting around the fireplace, roasting marshmallows anytime soon. It's just because there is so much division. I mean, and it's always been there. It's been there for decades. I feel that it's been festering beneath the surface. But and now we're having to deal with it.
Yes, and you're right. And nothing, regardless of what everybody likes to think, that things happen, because of somebody in position, that all of a sudden everything starts happening. This stuff has been going on for decades in this preparation to finally fall into place and actually work. It tended to remind me of the old movies and the TV shows where, negotiations. You sit there across the table and they're pounding the table at you and pounding the table. And then the thing that makes you change your mind is somebody pulled up some dirt on you and now they threw it in your face. And it's like, oh boy, I guess I'm going to give in now. This is it. Okay, you got me. That just seems to be the way things seem to go. You can't just sit down and be civil or be really straightforward with trying to better everyone. It's always at the expense of somebody else. Someone's always going to be paying the price for a good deed or even a bad deed, and it's really hard to balance that.
Absolutely.
Wow. I tell you, I'm impressed with what you do. I mean, it floors me. It's just amazing the talent that you have and the ability that you have to deal with situations that can be, well, I mean, let's face it. I mean, having been in negotiation, boy, they can go downhill real fast. I mean, they can go right down. And it doesn't even have to be even a word. It could be a motion you make, and everything's called off because somebody got insulted. When you're dealing with different cultures and you're dealing with reciprocity across cultures, where what would normally be within your own culture is accepted as a compliment, but in another culture it's seen as an insult. Mm-hmm. How do you prepare for that?
That's an interesting question, because I've worked with clients internationally for 10 years now, and it was a bit of a trial by fire, because when I started doing that, which was of no design, by the way. I just had a client in Chicago who knew some people in the Netherlands, who knew some people in Denmark, blah, 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 and it just kind of happened that way. But I definitely got into some unpleasant situations, and there were some bridges burned that probably shouldn't have been, just because I didn't really understand those cultural differences. I think that discretion's the better part of valor here, because if we take the time to understand before we react and respond, then we can ascertain how it was really meant, because realistically it doesn't matter how we choose to take it. I mean, that doesn't change the reality of how it was delivered or how it was offered in the first place. Right. So it can be a serious challenge. One of the ones that stick in my mind is that early on in my career, I took a large project with a company in Istanbul, Turkey. And really had zero knowledge of Turkish business practices. And there was a lot of frustration, and I ended up about $8,000 in the hole by the time it was all said and done. There were some hurt feelings and words exchanged, and probably some anger on both sides. But it's just a matter of learning from those experiences and taking them for what they are, rather than saying, I had a bad experience, therefore this whole group of people is bad, or they're evil, or they're dishonest. It's learning to take each person as they are individually and listen to them, rather than to make broad assumptions based on a racial category, or where they live, or what they do.
Gotcha. I totally understand that. I know, living in Ecuador, where the culture is so different from the United States, and I'm writing cover articles for the local magazine here, and which features doctors and dentists and professional Ecuadorians. And because it's so new here, I mean, the recognition and the need to be able to put your best foot forward is so new here for people, and what they find very important is their image. Their image is extremely important for them. Whereas you can do an interview with somebody from the United States, and you give a whole bunch of compliments and everything, and they look at you, come on, let's get serious now. I don't really need all that. Let's lay out the facts. This is what I do, and this is how I do it. But they don't here. They really do require the accolades and the notifications of the letters after their names and what they've done, the organizations that they belong to, the awards that they've been given and hang on their wall. I used to laugh at the what is it, they term your ego wall, or the wall where you have all your trophies and all the stuff that you've learned. Here it's extremely important. They really do have that here. And so it is, in the writing, you have to incorporate a lot of this in there that is not part of what they do for their business, but it has to be mentioned because this is who they see themselves as. So it is really very interesting to be here and dealing with a totally different culture, and it is quite challenging, very challenging.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so that self-presentation is important. That how you appear in front of others, right? Right. And it's, obviously here it's a little more subtle. I mean, but that self-presentation is still at work in very subtle ways. Where it's like I'm at the office and I'm making coffee for everybody, and Mike's there in the corner office, man, and Mike's a jerk, man. I just absolutely cannot stand that guy. Every time I walk by, he's got something smart to say, and I really would just like to just pick him up and toss him out the door. But I'm making coffee, and I got to make a cup of coffee for Mike too, because that's self-presentation. Because like, what kind of a person would I be if I said, you know what, the heck with you, Mike, you get your own damn coffee, I mean, and so it goes that way in these really subtle, nuanced ways that just kind of make, everyday society incredibly difficult to navigate, especially for somebody like me who's kind of stupid when it comes to reading social cues,
I find that difficult to believe.
Hey. We're all shocked, I know. Right? Yeah.
Let me see some of the comments in here.
Alice fire away.
Yeah, Alice says, let's see, you are a gem, Lee. Candace says there may be something to history in repeating itself. It's sad but true. Absolutely, Candace, you're absolutely right. Dana, hi, welcome, Dana. It's great to have you here. So yeah, we have 3 minutes left to go. I think 3 minutes. Okay. So I guess I'm going to wind this up a little bit. If there's anything that you'd like to pass on to everybody, pass on is not exactly the best thing on Halloween to say, but I mean to information you'd like to give to everybody else about the topic, and please jump right in.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I just like I've already said that one of the most important things, if nothing else, that you can take away from this is that it's an important and an effective and ethical to say, I've taken the time to understand you, so you can take the time to understand me, or how I can help you, or how we can come together to reach a mutual solution. It's so easy to get just caught up in this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I demand, and entirely lose sight of the fact that the person that you're standing, and it just that's not how we can function. We function in society too much that way, and it's not really functioning at all. So if you can take anything away from this, I would say that this, again, understanding and connection is the most valuable currency in the world, and we're not spending it wisely.
Thank you, Lee. Great. Thank you so much. I mean, just every time, I appreciate you coming on. I really love having you on.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the words of wisdom. We really do appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to try to close this up. Just a few things to remind everybody. Tomorrow is Thursday, so it is. We're going to be covering. We'll be covering the first 28 minutes of the show as all natural being, and then we're going to take a break. We'll relog back in again, and come up as a transitional, as a thinking re-envision. Sorry about that, and so that's where we're going to go ahead and try to do it. So we'll try to keep things a little bit light. We'll try to do the free for all Thursday. And so your comments will be there, and whatever you want to talk about during the first 28 minutes, and then we'll go back into more of the heady garbage that I've been dealing with, and we'll go ahead and cover some of that. And but also, again, stay in the thread, keep busy, keep active with it, ask me questions, and we'll go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and try to work through the rest of the belief systems. I believe we're just about done with that. In fact, I have a different slant on trying to deal with belief systems by trying to bring in a few examples, and I'm going to pull them from the news and try to show you what I mean by what it is to deal with the belief systems, the hate, how important it is to be honest, and what happens when you really don't do the things you're supposed to do when you do them. And we're faced with those situations right now, especially with immigration. So I'm going to try to tie a lot of that in together to show you just how pervasive this all is and how it all works together. So anyway, that'll be tomorrow. And I want to thank Lee again and my brother. I appreciate it, Wayne. Sorry for the technical problems, but we will join again tomorrow, Thursday, same place and same time. Appreciate it. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care.